I can say to my new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, hey, find a keto-friendly restaurant nearby and text it to Beth and Steve. And it does, without me lifting a finger. So I can get in more squats anywhere I can. 1, 2, 3.
Will that be cash or credit?
Credit. 4.
Galaxy S25 Ultra, the AI companion that does the heavy lifting so you can do you. Get yours at Samsung.com. Compatible with select apps. Requires Google Gemini account. Results may vary based on input. Check responses for accuracy.
The number one selling product of its kind with over 20 years of research and innovation. Botox Cosmetic, out of botulinum toxin A, is a prescription medicine used to temporarily make moderate to severe frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better in adults.
Effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow and eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Tell your doctor about medical history, muscle or nerve conditions including ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. For full safety information, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
See for yourself at BotoxCosmetic.com.
This is the Daily Blast from the New Republic, produced and presented by the DSR Network. I'm your host, Greg Sargent. We're now in day 2 of the fallout from the stunning news that President Trump's most senior national security officials allowed a journalist onto a highly sensitive discussion of war plans. Fox News figures are out in force denying wildly that anything at all is amiss. Yet under questioning from Senate Democrats, numerous Trump administration figures all but admitted that something very deeply amiss really had happened, wrecking the pro-Trump spin. For instance, when Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard was pressed on whether the information was classified, she passed the buck to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Gabbard evaded wildly on other fronts as well. And CIA Director John Ratcliffe made some striking admissions too. We're going to try to unravel all of this today with Rosa Brooks, an expert in national security law who held a senior policy advisor role at the Pentagon during the Obama presidency. Rosa, thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure, Greg.
So the Trump administration is now under heavy fire over the news that the Atlantic's Jeffrey Goldberg was included on a chat between Defense Secretary Hegseth, DNI Gabbard, Vice President J.D. Vance, CIA Director Ratcliffe, and many others. They were talking on Signal about their upcoming plans to bomb Yemen's Houthis and shared a number of sensitive operational details. Rosa, before we dive into the specifics, what's your general sense of where this story is right now? It seems to have caught fire in a new way. It's not dying down. You're reading?
This is a stunning story. And I think the rest of us are all just feeling kind of hurt that Mike Waltz didn't add us to the Signal chat. I know Mike Waltz, and I'm going to write him a note saying, next time you disclose classified information, I'd really like to be in the loop too. One, it's stunning because they accidentally included a journalist in a discussion of targeting war plans, etc. Two, they were having this discussion on Signal, a commercial app, not on secure U.S. government channels, which exist and which they're supposed to be using if they're discussing classified information. Three, imminent plans to bomb a target are, of course, they're classified. How could they not be unless the president just announced, we're going to start bombing tonight, whatever. Of course, they're classified. But also, if they're so convinced that nothing is classified, they can demonstrate that by telling Jeff Goldberg to go ahead and release the transcript of the entire chat, which he saved because he is a journalist. And unlike them, he apparently believes in record retention, which the government officials are supposed to believe in. This is so criminally careless and on every level. That leads me to number 4. This, of course, is what the Republicans were beating up Hillary Clinton about, a much lesser lapse for years about her emails, her use of a private email server. As far as I know, Hillary Clinton was not actually discussing classified war plans. This is it. My vocabulary is failing me. The number of ways to say that this was criminally irresponsible, probably illegal, and in any normal universe, this would have led to immediate resignations across the executive branch.
Well, to one of your points, I want to play some audio from the Senate Intelligence Committee hearing on Tuesday. Senator Angus King, an independent from Maine, grilled Gabbard hard, asking pointedly if the information was classified. She says it wasn't. Then this happened.
What if that had been made public that morning before the attack took place?
Senator, I can attest to the fact that there were no classified or intelligence equities that were included in that chat group at any time.
So,
and I
so the attack sequencing and timing and weapons and targets you don't consider should have been classified?
I deferred to the Secretary of Defense, the National Security Council on that question.
Well, you're the head of you're the head of the intelligence community. You're supposed to know about classifications. So your testimony very clearly today is that nothing was in that set of texts that were classified. I'll follow up on Senator Wyden's question. If that's the case, please release that whole text stream so that the public can have a view of what actually transpired on this discussion.
Rosa, we know that operational details were, in fact, in the texts, as Goldberg has said. And, in fact, Gabbard admits straight out under questioning from Senator Mark Kelly elsewhere that there was discussion of military targets in general. And Ratcliffe also admitted to that. Rosa, what do you make of those exchanges?
It's hard to take anything she's saying seriously because, of course, she knows what was said in that signal chat, number one. And, of course, she can tell the difference. Or I would hope to God that as the Director of National Intelligence, that she has a basic understanding of what kinds of information tends to be classified and what kind isn't. And the notion that she would go, oh, gee whiz, well, I don't know. I guess you'd have to ask the Secretary of Defense whether this is classified. If she doesn't know, then she is not qualified for her job. And if she does know, then she is part of an egregious security breach.
I think there's no question about it. And she was clearly totally flummoxed and didn't know what to say. I want to move to Fox News for a second. Fox's top propagandists all have spun wildly about this. As Matt Gertz of Media Matters documented, Laura Ingraham blamed the prominence of the story on left-wing networks. And on her show, Senator Josh Hawley laughably tried to dismiss this as, quote, griping about who is on a text message and who is not. Jesse Waters tried to laugh it off, saying, quote, did you ever try to start a group text? It's hard. And Sean Hannity claimed that the media just wants to distract from Trump's supposed accomplishments, and he called the media state-run. I think he maybe forgot, Rosa, that the state is actually in the hands of Trump and his allies right now. But that aside, this spin seems almost desperate to me. What do you think?
Oh, sure. I mean, yeah, we absolutely can. We all empathize with adding the wrong person to a group text chat? Of course we can, which is why if you are the Director of National Intelligence, the Secretary of Defense, and the National Security Advisor, you are not supposed to discuss war plans in a text group chat over a commercial app. I mean, duh. Right? That is why you're supposed to do it in the context. You're supposed to be in a SCIF, in a secure compartmentalized information facility. That's why you're supposed to, if you're doing audio or video calls, to be using secure audio and video technologies for that are run and maintained by the government. That's why you have 16 tedious layers of double checking of everything before you have those conversations. Yes, it's a pain in the butt, but the whole point of all of those boring procedures are to make sure that you don't do exactly what they did do. So saying, boy, it's confusing to start a group chat. Yes, that's the point. That's why you don't do this stuff over group chats.
That certainly seems inarguable to me, I got to say, the way you said it. I want to try to get at something, though. What is the chain of command here? It seems that the National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz, set this thing up. Is that how these things happen? In a situation where a bunch of the most senior people in the administration want to deliberate about something like this, what is supposed to happen there?
No, so it's certainly common that the National Security Advisor would be the person to say, hey, everybody, we have a decision that's on the table. Maybe we have a proposal from one agency, but other agencies have equities. We should discuss this. Or we have a decision. The president has raised this question. He's asked for advice or he's asked for an opinion on what to do here. So I want to bring everybody together in a principals committee. I mean, essentially, they were doing what is typically called a principals committee meeting. And the principals are typically the cabinet secretaries. The deputies level are the people just beneath them. You have principals meetings, you have deputies meetings, and so forth. So that in itself is normal. And I am in fact glad that they were at least having some discussion, and that it's not just Pete Hegseth goes off in a corner and bombs people without checking in with anybody beforehand. I mean, I appreciate that, right? That piece of it is normal process. The piece of it that is not normal process is to, as we've been discussing, to do this over a commercial app in which you've accidentally included a journalist. Another piece that is troubling. It's not really clear what people like Steve Miller are doing in that conversation. But that's a whole other story.
So what should have happened in a normal administration? What would have happened?
So in a normal administration, what would have happened is that through secure channels, the National Security Advisor would have made all of the other principals aware through their staffs that he wanted to convene a principals committee meeting. That can be done virtually. All these people have classified mobile devices. These people, typically any senior national security official, such as Secretary of Defense, the Director of National Intelligence, will have a home SCIF in their home. If they're traveling, they can use a SCIF at an American embassy, or most consulates and embassies have SCIFs, secure rooms for this purpose, and secure video conferencing and audio facilities and so forth. And part of the reason that you want to be ideally in a SCIF, even if you're using a classified mobile device, is you don't want to be, for instance, texting away on your classified mobile device at your kid's Little League game with a bunch of people looking over your shoulder, or dictating your message into your classified device in a setting in which either the person sitting next to you or someone with a long-range microphone can pick up what you're saying, or a long-range camera can see your screen. That it's not just about the device itself. It's about how are you connecting? Are you using commercial software that has not been vetted by the U.S. government to connect to that conference that you're having, or whether it's by text or audio or video, and you don't want to be in a place where eavesdroppers or those with zoom lenses and so on can see what you're doing. And we, the United States, I mean, again, the Director of National Intelligence and the Secretary of Defense, of all people, know exactly how good U.S. surveillance technologies are, and exactly how good the surveillance technologies of U.S. adversaries, state adversaries such as Russia and China are. You don't need to be sitting next to somebody in the Little League game in order to see their screen. Our satellite camera technologies are good enough that sometimes you can see that literally from the sky, so it's just normally there are secure places to go to have that level of conversation. And is it an inconvenience? You bet it's an inconvenience, but that's why these folks get paid the big bucks, as it were.
Spring is finally here. For us in DC, that means cherry blossom, warmer weather, and more breaking news each and every day. To stay up to date on all the news that you need to know, there's no better place than the DSR Network. And there's no better way to enjoy the DSR Network than to become a member. Members enjoy an ad-free listening experience, access to our Discord community, exclusive content, and more. Use code DSR2025 for a 40% off discount on sign-up at thedsrnetwork.com/buy. That's code DSR2025 at thedsrnetwork.com/buy. Thank you, and enjoy the show.
Watch the spirit of the Outback come to life at Australian Outback Spectacular's Heartland. See vibrant, diverse landscapes come alive in a fully immersive arena experience. A story of hardship, triumph, and the realities of life on the land. With captivating special effects, animals, and inspiring horsemanship. Don't miss an unforgettable night out with a 3-course dinner and drinks. Book now at outbackspectacular.com.au.
You'd think. I want to go back to the Senate hearing for a sec because there was another set of exchanges that really underscores your point. It involved Senator Mark Kelly and DNI Gabbard and CIA Chief Ratcliffe. Here's what happened.
The deliberation as to whether or not we should launch a strike on another country, would you consider that classified information, Ms. Gabbard?
Well, the information was not classified.
I'm not talking about this. I'm just talking about deliberation from principals as to whether or not we should launch a strike on another country. Would you consider that classified information? I'm not talking about what happened this week.
There are other factors that would go into determining that classification.
Mr. Ratcliffe, the deliberation between principals in our national security apparatus about whether or not to strike another country, would you consider that to be classified information?
Pre-decisional strike deliberation should be conducted through classified channels.
Rosa, Ratcliffe straight up admits there that this should never have happened. That absolutely destroys Fox News' spin about this. But this also reinforces the broader point here, which is that this has just occurred entirely outside of any legible or even remotely grounded process, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. They're contradicting themselves all over the place. I mean, the White House did confirm the authenticity of the chat. They're saying, on the one hand, they're saying, well, it's authentic, but it wasn't classified. But of course, can Jeff Goldberg release the transcript? We wouldn't want that to happen. Well, if it's not classified, they should let him release it. If it's classified, they should admit it's classified. And they should fix this. I mean, if anyone else had been involved in this, good God, can you imagine Joe Biden doing this? Can you imagine anyone in the Biden administration doing this? We know what happened with Hillary Clinton. We know what a big deal her emails were. This would be instant firings here. They're now trying to claim that it was a staff person who somehow mysteriously added Jeff Goldberg, and I don't believe they've released the name of this supposed staff person. But the buck stops with the principals. And again, I don't know how many times and how many ways we can say this. This is why you do not do this stuff over a commercial app with no process. This is why you use the tried and true processes to safeguard that kind of conversation against eavesdropping. Because you don't want a situation where, what is Mike Waltz doing? Handing his phone to, somebody, oh, hey, you set up the group chat. I'm not going to bother to take a look at it and even chat. You can't confirm the identity of people on Signal. There's no way to do that. You can't authenticate it. That's why you're not supposed to use Signal for this kind of conversation.
Again, sounds inarguable to me. And concerning this effort by them to pin it on some unnamed, supposedly existing staffer, Politico reports, according to a source very close to the White House, quote, everyone in the White House can agree on one thing: Mike Waltz is a effing idiot. Now, I don't know whether Mike Waltz is an idiot or not, but judging by what you're saying about the process, this is somebody who really should have known what should have been done here. And he's probably someone who should be fired for this, right?
Every single person on that group chat should have known better. Every single person. I do know Mike Waltz. He's not an idiot. I think this is an issue of humans. He's not an idiot more than humans in general are idiots. I don't think you will find a human being who's worked for any executive branch who hasn't at some point or another screwed up and used the wrong device or whatever. It happens because people are human and they forget and they're in a hurry, and they do stuff that if they had thought about it a little more, they're, oh shoot, I shouldn't have done that. But the many layers of fuck ups involved here, and the fact that it involved every single principal level national security leader in the Trump administration. This wasn't one person with a brief one-time lapse for one thing. This was, I don't think we know how many people were part of that group chat altogether. We know a number of the participants, but not all of them. That not a single one of them said, oh, guys, we should not be doing this over this channel. Or guys, we can't authenticate who is on this chat. That is the really mind-blowing piece and it raises the question, what else are they doing in a slipshod manner? What else are they doing in a half-assed manner? What else are they doing in an insecure manner? The damage, and we haven't talked about the actual damage to U.S. interests. If you're an ally of the United States, I'm not sharing intelligence with the U.S. anymore because they're going to be criminally negligent with the information I shared. Jeffrey Goldberg's article in The Atlantic suggests that, among other things, they used the identities of human intelligence assets and referred specifically to other intelligence methods and assets, as well as weapon systems, as well as named targets. If you're a U.S. ally, you're not going to share intelligence with us.
Okay, Rosa, I've saved the best for last. It's Trump's latest response to this whole thing. He's sitting there with Mike Waltz, the National Security Advisor, and he does this really almost kind of rote gesture of slapping Mike Waltz on the wrist so gently, it's almost incredible. And then Mike Waltz says, of course, we're going to keep the network secure, sir. Listen to this.
I think it's something you should look into.
Yes, sir, we are. We have our technical experts looking at it. We have our legal teams looking at it. And of course, we're going to keep everything as secure as possible. No one in your national security team would ever put anyone in danger. And as you said, and we've repeatedly said, the attack was phenomenal and it's ongoing. But the media wants to talk about everything else except for the hostages you're getting out of the Middle East, Iran on its back foot, sea lanes getting reopened, peace in Europe. As we just saw today with a Black Sea ceasefire, we were just on with Steve Witkoff, myself, our team in Saudi Arabia. They want to talk about all this other stuff except for your amazing successes and the successes of your team.
So, Rosa, there it all is. Mike Waltz knows better than anyone that the way to avoid accountability in Trump's eyes is to praise the audience of one. And he just did it as unctuously and obsequiously as you possibly can imagine. This is not what we want in a leader at times like this, is it?
Oh, Mr. President, you are very handsome and so very brilliant. I mean, look, that's the way Trump operates. We know that he will jettison people who he thinks are being critical of him. And so, Mike Waltz knows which side his bread is buttered on. I also honestly, although I think, as I said earlier, that in any normal universe, Mike Waltz would have resigned yesterday. I almost hope he won't, though, because frankly, the people waiting in the wings behind Mike Waltz are a lot worse than Mike Waltz. Mike Waltz is this was careless to the point of criminal negligence, but Mike Waltz is not a raving lunatic, and frankly, some of the folks in Trump's orbit are raving lunatics. I would rather have Mike Waltz as National Security Advisor than almost all the possible alternatives in Trump world right now. But I would love to think that this, however, would be the tipping point in terms of Republicans in Congress and their willingness to themselves just be obsequious and kowtow to Trump, because I would like to believe that at least some of those Republicans in Congress do care about American national security, even if they don't care about much of anything else. But I think that the perfect 2 months that President Trump is boasting of and that Mike Waltz is telling him he's just had suggests that the only thing perfect about it has been the perfect obsequiousness of Republicans in Congress. I'd like to believe that this will be the straw that breaks the camel back for Republicans in Congress in terms of willing to say, whoa, on every possible level, in every possible way, Donald, you're going too far, stop. But given the total lack of spine that Republicans in Congress have shown thus far, I'm not getting my hopes up.
Rosa, I think it's going to have to get much, much, much worse for anything like that to happen. And unfortunately, I think it is going to get much, much, much worse. Rosa Brooks, thank you so much for coming on with us today.
My pleasure.
You've been listening to The Daily Blast with me, your host, Greg Sargent. The Daily Blast is a New Republic podcast and is produced by Riley Fessler and the DSR Network.